Some renters at an affordable housing unit in South Austin are making strong complaints tonight against their landlord.
One tells KXAN the air conditioning was intentionally shut off. Others claim there's a rodent problem, and they say the complaints are being ignored by the property manager. So they called the KXAN tip line, and our Chris Willis went to the Onion Creek Apartments to investigate. He joins us live now to tell us what he found out. Chris?
Mice, mold, maggots, and trash, Robert. Just some of the complaints from people who live here at the residence at Onion Creek on East Slaughter Lane. They tell me their issues were ignored when they voiced their complaints to property managers, sometimes for several months. And this is a tax credit apartment complex with strict guidelines financed by investors through the federal tax credit program.
If you live in an apartment, chances are you'll eventually have some issues with the landlord.
Wires get crossed, the electrician didn't do something right.
But for people living at the residences at Onion Creek, they're not just issues. They're complaints. They say were voiced to the apartment managers, and a lot of them.
My master bathroom was completely flooded with water, and mold was growing inside the bathroom as well as in the bedroom.
Physically walked into an apartment and turned off his AC when it's 110 degrees outside.
Well, the outlet in the dining room is actually arcing electricity.
Josh says he could actually see the electrical sparks from the outlet, and with a small child, he was worried and called the managers for weeks. Through the KXAN tip line, we received these photos taken by renters to document their problems with mold, maggots, mice holes, rodent droppings, and a lot of piled up trash. Several residents with several problems. They say were reported time and time again to property managers at the residences at Onion Creek. Property managers could not confirm that claim because they did not return our phone calls. This renter, who didn't want her identity known, says it got unbearable with a newborn baby and no air conditioning.
It seemed like he was running a fever, but he was just hot. And he was miserable, he was sweating, he was crying, I was sweating, I was miserable.
After staying with her parents, she finally checked into a hotel with her baby and came back to the office a few weeks later to see if the air conditioning was fixed. But it was close to 5 o'clock, and she says the managers did not like it.
You need to get out of the office. We'll call the police.
People who live here say this is a perfect example of what they've come to expect. It was more than a month ago that a truck coming on Slaughter Lane lost control, crashed through this fence, and slammed right into the outside wall of this apartment complex. Now, more than a month later, the family still lives inside and no repairs have been done.
They even asked my wife to call our renter's insurance to take care of that, which is rather ridiculous.
The day after our cameras documented this damage, repairs suddenly began. According to the underwriting report for the property, the residences at Onion Creek are owned and managed by New Rock, headquartered in Georgia. The Texas Tenant Advisor is an online resource that tells renters to notify their landlord in writing when there's a problem. In cases where a repair is needed, the renter should expect to wait a reasonable amount of time for that repair to be addressed, usually about 1 week. None of the renters I spoke with at the residences at Onion Creek documented their problems in writing. Instead, in each case, the renters called the complex management office and verbally registered their complaint with the understanding that the office was writing up a work order. So if it's so bad, why not just move out? Well, New Rock was financed to build the residences at Onion Creek through investors in the federal tax credit program. That means it was paid for by investors who finance construction in exchange for tax credits. It is a highly successful program all across Texas.
Incredibly successful, probably the most successful affordable housing program on the planet.
Tim Irvin is the acting director of the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. His agency oversees the tax credit housing program statewide, close to 100 properties and more than 15,000 units in Central Texas alone. Mr. Irvin would not comment specifically about the residences at Onion Creek because his enforcement team had not seen the renters' claims, but says allegations like these are rare in the tax credit program.
We do have enforcement tools that we do use. We have used them on limited occasions. We always go through an informal process to try to sort things out, but sometimes it is a situation where somebody just proves that they either can't comply or they won't comply.
Well, living conditions are one thing, federal and state guidelines are another. Because the residences at Onion Creek is a tax credit affordable housing complex, there are income qualifications. In other words, if you make too much money, you can't live here. But some of the renters tell us there are ways around that too. We're going to take a closer look at that issue and try to get a response from the people who run this complex tonight at 10. For now, though, we're in South Austin and we're live. Chris Willis, KXAN News.